Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Bold and the Beautiful. Daphne sabotages Hope and Carter's dream wedding. Bold and the Beautiful fans. We have got Daphne Rose, Muriel Hilaire, back on the scene soon, and she may stir up some trouble when the newly engaged couple, Hope Logan, Annika Noel, and Carter Walton, Lawrence St. Victor, have their big day. We're going to talk about Daphne coming back to LA, and whether she will crash Hope's wedding and steal the groom. So recently Steffi Forrester, Jacqueline Messinswood, called Daphne to talk perfume, and she asked her to come back to Forrester Creations. Now obviously Steffi wants Daphne to come back because she is a big hit with their audience. She has a men's line of cologne coming out that would be good for FC. So for Steffi it's, mostly about business. But Hope is on fire and worried about her relationship, and she thinks somehow that should be the priority. And can I just say who sits in a business meeting holding hands like Carter and Hope were doing? I mean, I know they all boink on the sofas in the CEO and design offices, but employees should not be sitting and holding hands in a meeting with the co-CEO. It's just not professional. Steffi finally managed to get Hope and Carter on board with bringing Daphne back, even though they were both a bit nervous about it. And then Carter assured Hope she has nothing to worry about, and he thinks Daphne will respect their engagement. I doubt it though. And Steffi doesn't think Hope has anything to worry about either. I disagree there as well. But although Carter and Hope finally accepted it, we're going to see Steffi facing some pushback from that quarter. On the last episode of this week, Carter seems to be pressing Steffi about not bringing back Daphne. Carter goes to her and Ridge Forrester, Thorsten K., about it, and it sounds like Carter's trying to talk the co-CEOs out of bringing Daphne back in. But Steffi point blank tells Carter they're not going to let Hope's feelings stop a smart business decision that could improve Forrester Creations' bottom line. Plus, Steffi's still working on getting Daphne to agree to return. Steffi gave Daphne heads up, by the way, if you didn't see that Carter and Hope are engaged, and Daphne wasn't happy to hear that, and she said that the cologne will sell without her. And she reminded Steffi why she left. She fell for Carter and he chose Hope. So Daphne told Steffi she just can't do it. She can't work at Forrester and she can't keep thinking about Carter. But then Daphne hung up the phone with Steffi, and that's exactly what she did. She started moaning, and we got all the flashbacks of her falling for Carter. Daphne was flashing back to kissing Carter, and him telling her that she's remarkable. So no, Daphne is not going to be able to stay away. It shouldn't be too long before she's back in Los Angeles. And I knew she wasn't going to stay gone because the actress has solidly remained in the contract section of the credit. So I had no doubt she'd be back. And once Daphne has the chance to really think about Steffi's offer, I think she may see it as a sign that she needs to head back to LA and fight for Carter. I mean, it's not like Hope and Carter are getting married tomorrow. So Daphne may come back for business reasons, but then not be able to help herself and may start pursuing Carter again. In the meantime, somebody else is unhappy about Hope being engaged to Carter as well. That's Hope's father, Deacon Sharp, Team Cannon. By the end of this week, Hope heads over to see her dad and shows Deacon her engagement ring. Tells him about the proposal, and rather than just congratulating Hope, looks like Deacon's going to try and talk her out of it. He asks Hope if she's sure about this engagement. And Deacon reminds her that Carter was behind all that drama at Forrester Creations. It's not that long ago that wound up getting her fired and all of that. So we're going to have Deacon pushing on Hope to reconsider marrying him. And then of course, Carter was tempted by Daphne and looks like that's going to come full circle. So once Steffi convinces Daphne to return, she'll have a little bit of time to worm her way closer to Carter because the wedding likely wasn't going to be for a while. But with Daphne returning, maybe Hope's going to kick that wedding planning into high gear out of paranoia and make plans to marry him as soon as possible. So what I'd like to see is Carter and Hope make it to the altar, and then Daphne runs in, and she crashes the wedding and she steals Carter from the bride. I could totally see Daphne, Muriel Hilaire, pulling a stunt like Quinn Fuller, Rena Sofer did. Remember that? Wasn't that long ago? I think it was like 3 years ago. Carter was at the altar ready to marry Paris Buckingham, Diamond White, when Quinn came bursting in, and she told him she loved him and said, "Don't marry Paris. Choose me." And guess what? If you don't remember, Carter ditched the bride and he left with the wedding crasher. So if Daphne shows up and interrupts, this would be Carter's second wedding interrupted by a woman determined to steal him. But if Daphne does interrupt their nuptials, would Carter actually leave Hope at the altar like he did to Paris? Well, if you remember, Carter got started with Quinn while they were both betraying her husband, his good friend Eric Forrester, John McCook. It started out sketchy, and then Eric actually gave permission because he was having those ED issues. It was so gross. And then eventually Carter and Quinn developed something very deep and passionate. Now, to differentiate as of now, Carter hasn't known Daphne that long. They've only shared a kiss. They've not been intimate, but she did tell Carter she's fallen for him. So at least from Daphne's side, there is something deep and passionate. And maybe it'll turn that way for Carter soon once she's got a chance to start picking at him again. But as of this moment in time, I think Hope would get her. I do, with Carter, and they would be husband and wife. And even if Daphne busted in, like if the wedding was next week, I don't think Carter would leave Hope at the altar and run off. Not yet. It's the yet that's got me. Once Daphne returns, she's going to have some time to work on Carter. And Daphne might even try to, go at it from another angle. Push Hope closer to Liam Spencer, Scott Clifton, especially once Daphne finds out he's dying. And you never know, Daphne and Deacon might conspire to get Hope to break up with Carter. So by the time Hope's wedding day arrives, we could see Carter feeling very conflicted and maybe torn between Hope versus Daphne. That's a big recurring trope on Bold and the Beautiful. And like I said before, I just don't see Carter and Hope being endgame on Bold and the Beautiful. First of all, because Carter never ever works out with anyone. And second, Hope generally wafts back over to Liam eventually. So we know that she told Liam she loved him and that he was her future while Carter was eavesdropping. And that was 5 minutes before Hope ran to Carter to tell him she wanted to be with him. And he was like, "No, Hope, I heard you talking to Liam." And she's like, "Oh no, you just misunderstood. It was just like no." Anyway, I really wonder if Hope only went back to Carter because Liam pushed her and he's dying. As of now, Hope doesn't think there's any chance of a future with Liam because of his terminal tumor, and she wants to honor his wishes to see her settle down before he dies. Not to say Hope doesn't love Carter to some extent, but I do think that she still sees Liam as her soulmate, her destiny, if you want to use that terrible word. And if Liam somehow survives the brain cancer, which seems pretty likely, Carter could lose Hope anyway. So if the wedding is a couple of months from now, Daphne might actually stand a chance if she crashes Hope's big day and makes a play for the groom.